Hello everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Max. When my wife humiliated and laughed at my size in front of friends, I knew I needed to do something. Brooke and I got married after dating for less than a year. Looking back, that should have been my first warning sign, that we moved too fast, didn't take enough time to really know each other beyond the surface attraction and initial chemistry. We met at a friend's party. I was 29, working as an operations supervisor at a manufacturing plant. Brooke was 28, working as a sales associate at a mid-range retail store in a shopping mall. She was socially active in every way, and I was the opposite. Reserved, quiet, more comfortable listening than talking. I typically prefer having one or two deeper conversations rather than working the room. When we met, those differences felt complementary. She brought me out of my shell. I provided stability to her chaos. Classic opposites attract dynamic that seems romantic at first. We dated for about 10 months before I proposed. The relationship moved quickly. She said yes enthusiastically. We planned a simple wedding for 2 months later. Small ceremony, just close friends and family, nothing elaborate. The first years of marriage were stable and manageable. I worked long hours at the plant. She worked retail hours that varied week to week. We'd have dinner together most nights, watch TV, and go to bed. It was like the normal married life with its ups and downs. We had small arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes, disagreements about how to spend money, and occasional tension when one of us was stressed about work. Nothing felt threatening to the marriage itself. I believed I was doing my best. I provided financially. I was faithful, reliable, and present. I helped around the house, remembered anniversaries and birthdays, and tried to be supportive when she was having bad days. But one thing had been declining steadily: our bedroom intimacy. In the beginning, sex had been frequent and passionate, multiple times a week. The physical connection had been strong, uncomplicated. But over the 3 years of marriage, that had dwindled significantly. By year 3, we were having sex maybe twice a month. And even then, it felt mechanical, perfunctory. I was always the one initiating, always the one trying to create romantic moments or physical connection. And more often than not, Brooke would have an excuse. She was tired. She had a headache. She wasn't in the mood. She had to get up early. She'd just eaten too much. Always something. I started feeling rejected and inadequate. Like something was wrong with me that I couldn't identify. But I didn't know how to talk about it without sounding needy or demanding. So I just accepted it as normal marriage stuff. Assumed all couples went through phases like this. Then, about 4 months ago, I decided to try something different. I thought maybe if we got out of our routine, did something fun and social with other couples, it might spark something between us. Remind us why we'd gotten married in the first place. I organized a double date with another married friend of ours. This friend worked with me at the plant, and he and his wife had been married about 5 years. They seemed happy, stable, the kind of couple I wanted Brooke and me to be. I planned an evening of couples activities. We'd start at an escape room, then go to dinner, then maybe drinks if everyone was having fun. When I told Brooke about the plans, her reaction wasn't what I'd hoped for. She seemed annoyed that I'd made plans without asking her first. Said she might have had other things to do. Asked why I was trying so hard to manufacture fun. But she eventually agreed to go, though not enthusiastically. The night arrived, and we met with my friend and his wife at the escape room. It was one of those horror-themed ones, with actors and special effects. We had an hour to solve puzzles and escape. As the evening progressed, Brooke started loosening up. She laughed at the jump scares, got competitive about solving puzzles faster than the other couple, and high-fived me when we figured out a particularly tricky clue. I felt validated. This was working. She was having fun, we were connecting, and this was exactly what we needed. After the escape room, we went to dinner at a casual restaurant nearby. Conversation flowed easily. Stories about embarrassing work moments, funny memories from college, and plans for upcoming holidays. After dinner, my friend suggested getting drinks at a bar down the street. Everyone agreed it sounded good. We walked to the bar, A dive-type place with dim lighting, pool tables, and a jukebox playing classic rock. Found a booth in the back, ordered a round of drinks. By this point, everyone was relaxed and happy. The evening had been genuinely fun. As we were on our second round of drinks, my friend suggested we play a drinking game. Nothing serious, just a truth or dare style thing with couple focus questions. Everyone was tipsy enough to agree it sounded entertaining. The questions started lightly. What was your most embarrassing first date moment? What's something your spouse does that annoys you, but you've never told them? We laughed at the answers, poured more drinks, and kept playing. The questions gradually got more personal, more intimate. Then my friend's wife, who was clearly tipsy by this point, asked my wife a question with a mischievous grin. Okay, real talk. What's one thing you wish your husband could improve in bed? The question hung in the air for a moment. I felt my stomach tighten slightly, but I forced a smile, assuming Brooke would deflect or say something playful. Instead, she smirked, took a deliberate sip of her drink, then said casually, like she was commenting on the weather, "The only thing I wish he could improve is his size. I just wish there was more to work with." Awkward laughter erupted around the table. I forced a smile onto my face. But inside, my chest felt like it was caving in. A quiet, cutting humiliation washed over me. I have always been aware that I am small down there, but I thought she never minded. Hearing her say it in front of other people, exposing something private, humiliated me publicly. My friend sensed my mood and quickly changed the subject, starting to talk about something completely unrelated. The conversation moved on. But I was gone, mentally checked out, just going through the motions for the rest of the evening until we could leave. We said goodbye to my friend and his wife around midnight. Drove home in tense silence. Brooke hummed along to the radio, seemingly unbothered by what had happened, either oblivious to how her comment had landed, or aware and uncaring. Once we got home, I couldn't hold it in anymore. In our bedroom, as she was getting ready for bed, I asked her directly, did she genuinely think I was small? She was still tipsy, less filtered than usual. She answered without thinking, "Yeah, honestly." Then added matter-of-factly, "You're the smallest I've ever been with." I stood there speechless, just staring at her. She noticed my expression finally, seemed to realize she'd said something hurtful. She tried to backtrack with a dismissive laugh. Told me to relax, it was just a joke, I was being too sensitive. Said it like I was overreacting to something trivial. I realized in that moment that she didn't feel sorry, didn't understand, or didn't care how deeply she'd hurt me. Saw my pain as oversensitivity rather than a legitimate response to public humiliation. Something inside me fundamentally shifted. From that night forward, I went silent, withdrawn and distant. My mind wouldn't stop racing with her words, replaying the moment at the bar over and over, analyzing every implication. Was this why our sex life had declined? Had she been unsatisfied all along but never said anything? Had she been comparing me to other men every time we were intimate? And if she was that unsatisfied, if I wasn't enough for her physically, where was she getting satisfaction? The suspicion grew roots in my mind. She might be cheating. Everything started making horrible sense. The declining intimacy, the constant excuses, the growing distance, the late nights she'd started having recently. By the third day after her comment, I made a decision. I called a private investigation firm, explained my situation, suspected infidelity, needed surveillance and documentation. The investigator I spoke with was professional and discreet, said he could start immediately. I provided Brooke's schedule, photos of her and her car, and her workplace address. The investigator said he'd track her movements for 2 to 3 weeks and compile a report. But even before getting any results from the investigation, I was already questioning whether this marriage was worth saving. Her comment had revealed something about how she saw me. Her lack of remorse had revealed even more about who she was as a person. By that same third day, I stopped trying to save the marriage. I stopped making efforts to connect with her. Stopped initiating conversations beyond basic logistics. Stopped trying for any kind of intimacy. stopped doing the small gestures of affection that had been part of our routine. I just existed in the same space as her. Roommates, not spouses. As I stopped trying, things deteriorated rapidly. It became painfully clear that I had been the only one holding our marriage together. My effort had been the sole thing maintaining even the facade of connection. Brooke started noticing the changes days after. Her things that needed fixing stayed broken. I'd always handled household repairs. Now I ignored them. She joked once that I was so angry I hadn't even bought her gas like usual. I'd been filling her tank every week as a small gesture. Now I didn't. I didn't even respond to the comment. Just kept reading whatever was on my phone. I was waiting for her to realize what she'd done, to apologize, to acknowledge that her public humiliation of me had consequences. But the apology never came. Instead, she just became more distant herself. Started coming home later and later. When I'd ask where she'd been, she'd give vague answers. Out with friends. Running errands. With her eyes never meeting mine. I didn't push or argue. Just noted the pattern. Waited for the investigator's report. 3 weeks after hiring the PI, he contacted me requesting a meeting. We met at a coffee shop near my work during my lunch break. He slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photos, timestamps, a written timeline. The evidence was clear and damning. Brooke had been seeing someone, a man who worked at the gym she joined months ago. The same gym membership she'd said she needed to get in shape and feel better about herself. The PI had photos of them meeting and spending time. The timeline went back at least a month based on what the investigator could document. Possibly longer before surveillance started. I sat looking at the photos, feeling strangely calm. My suspicion had been right all along. I thanked the investigator, paid the remaining balance on his fee, and drove back to work. That evening, driving home, I thought to myself, this marriage is done. She just doesn't know it yet. I didn't confront Brooke about the affair. Didn't tell her anything about what I knew. Just maintained the same distant routine we'd fallen into. Meanwhile, I quietly prepared my exit. I scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney, a family law specialist with strong reviews. In her office, we discussed the entire situation. The divorce attorney reviewed the PI report and photos carefully, then explained my options. I couldn't split from Brooke without her getting anything. We had joint assets, shared property, marital finances that would need dividing. But the fact that we'd been married less than 5 years limited potential alimony significantly, and her documented infidelity could influence the settlement in my favor, reducing her claim to marital assets. The divorce attorney offered legal strategies to protect as much as I reasonably could. Ways to separate premarital property from marital property. Documentation of contributions I'd made solely for my income. Nothing illegal or shady. Just thorough legal documentation. I gave her the go-ahead to proceed. Told her I wanted the divorce filed as soon as possible. She said papers would be ready within a week. True to her word, 5 days later, the divorce attorney called to say everything was prepared. She'd arranged for a professional server to deliver the papers to Brooke. I provided Brooke's work address. The server went there during her shift, delivered the papers. I was at work when it happened. Got a text from the attorney confirming service had been completed. That evening, I came home at my usual time. Brooke's car was already in the driveway. I entered the house to find her sitting on the couch, divorce papers spread on the coffee table in front of her. Her face, when she saw me, showed shock and anger in equal measure. The moment I walked in, she started ranting. How could I do this without talking to her first? How could I blindside her this way? I was overreacting to one stupid comment, throwing away our marriage over a joke. I didn't engage, didn't argue or defend myself, just walked past her toward the bedroom. She followed, voice getting louder, more desperate, demanding I explain myself, demanding that I tell her what was really going on. I remained silent, started packing an overnight bag with clothes and toiletries. Brooke switched from anger to pleading, started crying, said we could work through this, suggested counseling. promised to be better, to think before speaking, to never embarrass me again. I finished packing, zipped the bag, and walked past her toward the front door. She grabbed my arm, tears streaming down her face, begging me not to leave, saying she loved me. I gently removed her hand from my arm and left. Got in my car and drove to a hotel. Blocked her number for the night so I could have peace. The divorce process officially began weeks later. Brooke contested it initially, hired her own attorney, claimed I was being unreasonable and that she wanted to reconcile. But my attorney presented the evidence from the PI, photos and documentation of Brooke's affair with another man, painting a picture of infidelity. Brooke couldn't deny it. The evidence was too clear. Her strategy shifted to financial negotiation. She started demanding a larger settlement, claimed she deserved more despite the infidelity, said she'd given up career opportunities for our marriage, though I couldn't think of what opportunities those had been. Her attorney argued for spousal support. My attorney argued against it based on the short marriage length and documented fault. The process dragged on for months. Back and forth negotiations between attorneys. Court hearings where we sat on opposite sides of a room. Mediations where we tried to reach agreements. Brooke alternated between angry and desperate. She texted constantly despite me blocking her, using different numbers. Tried to reach me through friends and family. Showed up at my new space unannounced multiple times. I maintained complete no contact. Let my attorney handle absolutely everything. Stayed firm on my positions. Around the 8-month mark, we entered serious settlement discussions. The court considered the length of our marriage, which was significant. Considered her documented infidelity. Weighed both parties' contributions to marital assets. The final settlement was reached in 10 months. Brooke got a portion of marital assets, some household items, a portion of our shared savings account. But no long-term alimony. The settlement was limited due to both the short marriage and her fault in its dissolution. The divorce was finalized just over a year after I'd filed. On a Thursday afternoon in a judge's chambers, we both signed the final papers. The marriage was officially dissolved. We left through separate exits. I never saw her again after that day. In the months following the divorce, I focused on rebuilding my life. I kept the house we'd shared, renewing the lease solely in my name. I reconnected with hobbies I'd neglected during the marriage. Took up woodworking, something I'd always been interested in but never made time for. I reflected a lot on what the marriage had taught me, about the importance of speaking up when you're hurt instead of staying silent, about not ignoring red flags just because you want the relationship to work, about self-respect and maintaining boundaries. The financial aspect of the settlement had stung. Yes, I'd lost some assets to her. Had to split the savings we'd accumulated. Give her household items that I'd paid for. It was painful giving anything to someone who'd cheated on me, who'd publicly humiliated me, who'd shown so little remorse. But I came to see it this way. The financial loss was temporary. Money can be earned back. Assets can be replaced. But staying in a toxic marriage where I was disrespected and cheated on, that would have cost me something much more valuable and much harder to recover. My self-respect, my peace of mind, my sense of self-worth. Walking away had a price. But staying would have cost me more. Now, nearly 2 years after that night at the bar, I'm in a completely different place. Taking time to heal fully and rediscover who I am outside of that marriage. I'm more cautious now, more aware of red flags, more willing to walk away early if something feels off. But I'm not bitter. I understand that not everyone is like Brooke, that her actions reflected her character, not some universal truth about relationships or women. I think sometimes about that night at the bar, how one comment changed everything, how public humiliation revealed who she really was. Her lack of remorse afterward confirmed it. The infidelity I discovered was just final proof of what I already knew. She didn't respect me, didn't value our marriage, didn't deserve my continued effort. Walking away was the only self-respecting choice. It hurts to get cheated on and still lose some of your hard work to the same person in a divorce settlement. The unfairness of it rankles sometimes when I think about it too long. But it's better than continuing to live with someone who doesn't respect you. Better than staying in a marriage where you're diminished and humiliated. Better than waking up next to someone who's sharing her body with someone else while sharing your bed. Sometimes the cost of your peace is worth more than what you lose by walking away. That's what I learned. That's what I carry forward. And I'm better for it.